You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back, family, to the Storm Tracker podcast. Marcus Benjamin here, representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to the website, CanesCounty.com, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel, live from Canes County. We're officially done with official visit weekends here in June, and Miami is expected to go on a run here of commits. And Miami traditionally, under this Cristobal era, have done great in recruiting, and I think Miami has a really good chance to land a top 5 2026 class. To discuss it all, I've got John Garcia, national recruiting analyst for Rivals.com, to break down this 2026 class so far and also discuss some of the talent that's at the Rivals 5-star, which John is at over there in Indianapolis. Thanks for joining me today, John.
Absolutely a pleasure, my guy.
Yeah, it's been a while since we kind of jumped on here, but there's been plenty of news concerning the Miami Hurricanes and recruiting. The latest, Asharri Charles, 4-star defensive end out of Venice, commits to Miami on Sunday. And the day before, Miami gains another defender to its class by flipping Jasen Edwards from Rutgers. Both of which I kind of thought was going to happen. You know, you just kind of didn't know when. And Miami just kind of positions themselves for a top 5 class. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But just first, your thoughts on Asharri Charles committing to Miami.
Yeah, I really like this get for the U. I think this is a very high floor player. Comes out of a Venice high school program that has churned out Division I recruits, very well coached, very great competition they face out there in the Sarasota area. So he comes with that pedigree, and the production is there as well. 13 and a half sacks last year, another 15 stops behind the line of scrimmage. And what I like about Charles is the balance he brings. He's probably just a shade under 6'3", 230 pounds right now. He can hold the point of attack very, very well, but obviously known as a pass rusher. And you really can't stack enough of these guys up in any defensive scheme in this pass-first era of college football that we're currently residing in. So I think this is a really nice get for the U. Last time we saw him live, or last time I saw him, was at the Rivals Camp Miami, where he was arguably the best pass rusher there. I mean, Jake Krell got MVP, and Charles was right on his heels. I mean, neither guy really lost a rep. So you get a high floor motor player. There's polish here. There's pop at the point of contact. And then there's a little bit of versatility. He can work off of the football and drop if you need him to. Although, again, that forte is rushing the passer with a nice array of moves. We've seen him bend incredibly well. He can turn the corner. He can counter with his hands. And he's got better power than you would expect given a smaller stature coming off of the outside. So there's just a lot to like about where Asharri's game is right now. I don't know ceiling-wise how much more he's going to improve just from a height, weight, speed standpoint. He's a pretty, refined prospect physically, but obviously, ACC weight room, the resources and all that down in Coral Gables, he'll be able to maximize out, I think as an underclassman in the next year or two. So I think you're getting a guy who's ready to be a situational player day one and eventually works his way into the rotation as an underclassman. So again, you can't have enough pass rushers, especially guys who are high IQ, high motor, high floor, who are ready to go kind of sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. One of those resources that Miami has with Asharri Charles is, of course, Jason Taylor, the Hall of Fame defensive line coach. He attested his commitment a lot to Jason Taylor, recruiting him, being very consistent in his recruitment. I think Charles is a really, really good get, just like you said, John. and you're going to couple him with Tyson Bacon, who is really impressive talent out of Hoover, Alabama, and then also the local talent Jordan Campbell. So right now Miami is kind of building up a solid class of pass rushers for Jason Taylor to deal with. I did want to mention the other commit that happened over the weekend as well, which is Justin J.J. Edwards out of Central Florida. Very talented linebacker. I had a chance to briefly talk with Miami DC Corey Heatherman yesterday, and he absolutely loves Edwards. He really thinks he's a really talented player, maybe a tad underrated, and Miami has a chance to really kind of build up this linebacker core for this 2026 class as well. What are your thoughts on Miami picking up JJ Edwards?
Yeah, I happen to agree with the DC. I think this is a guy who has quietly put together a nice couple years on tape, and he was quietly a priority for a lot of schools as the fall turned into the spring recruiting period. Miami was steady on him well before the Rutgers commitment. Rutgers, of course, did a good job early on. Syracuse was involved. This was a guy that a lot of coaching staffs thought they could kind of prioritize quietly, if that makes sense. Not a big, top 100 type of recruit that's obvious to so many people. And I think it's because of his modern abilities. He's really a safety playing linebacker, so he's excellent in space. He can move incredibly well. The athleticism is off the charts, even to the point where he has double-digit sacks to his name just last year, right? So a guy that has impacted all three levels of the defense already, at 6'2", 200 pounds. So kind of a blank canvas, maybe the opposite of an Asharri Charles, who feels like he's more of a finished product ready to go right now. I think with JJ Edwards, depending on the projection, is he an inside backer, captain of the defense type guy, or is he your hybrid who you kind of move around everywhere, much like we talk about with Jordan Campbell, the other Miami commitment on the outside. And to me, it doesn't matter. It's a positive no matter what, because I think physically you could absolutely say, hey, the plan is to bulk this kid up and let him come screaming off the edge as a more compact edge rusher, which Miami has had a lot of success with over the years. Or you just lean into that long and lean athleticism and say, hey, allow him to patrol the second level, run sideline to sideline, and rack up tackles. I mean, there's still a role for that type of player. But I think the pass rushing upside, or it could be a moonlighting element for him on third downs. And that's something that, can really raise your stock in short order. So, 10 sacks in the Orlando area against very good competition when you're not rushing the passer every play, it's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
And it just attests to the athleticism and twitch that Edwards has in his bag right now. So fascinated to see physically where he develops, but also positionally. Yeah, I think this could be the sneakiest get for Miami in this class of 15 guys thus far.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to kind of describe it. I think he's perhaps maybe the most underrated player on this 2026 commitment list, which now is kind of firmly, I think, in the top 10 for the team recruiting rankings. And I think Miami's kind of there to stay. I think they have a really great chance to get a top 5 class, maybe a top 3 class. And depending on, maybe a Tristan Keys or somebody, if they decide to flip to Miami, maybe it's a top 2, 1 class. I mean, I think the momentum is going to really snowball in these next couple of weeks. Right now, currently, Miami has the 7th ranked class in the nation. And Miami's also, of course, had a focus on local talent. I mean, that's always been kind of a focus for Miami since Cristobal has arrived here in Coral Gables. And one of the local talents that Miami is really trying to get is Jasen Lopez, Restrepo 2.0, man. This guy is been productive. He is really sneaky athletic, just kind of like Justin Edwards a little bit. Two-sport player just offered by Miami for basketball. If you guys have ever seen his highlights in basketball, I definitely invite you to kind of look at that. Really crafty with the ball at the point guard position, 3-star on Rivals. Miami is in a really, really good position, I think, to get Jasen Lopez. Miami interested in other slot receivers as well, though. As far as Braden Robinson is a player that Miami is looking to possibly add to the class, as well as other receivers as well are kind of in the mix for this 2026 class, including Keys that I mentioned, Zion Robinson, Samarian Wingo, and others. So it's very interesting to see kind of how many receivers Miami takes. I think they take 3 to 4, but Lopez definitely should be a high priority for this staff. What are your thoughts on Miami landing Lopez? You think Miami keeps him home?
I've gone back and forth on this, to be honest with you. I think early on, you felt like, look, as this kid emerges locally, he's one you got to keep home. You mentioned the Restrepo comparison. That's not going to go away. That's something that, Jason and I have laughed about together. I mean, he understands, hey, look, this is what people are going to call me, especially if I go here. But it's not a bad deal. I mean, this is the all-time leader, in many categories at the U. And no disrespect to X, but I think Jason comes in with a higher ceiling because of what you mentioned. This guy has prioritized basketball for such a long time, and don't sleep on the hoop stuff. I mean, this AAU tape, the Chaminade tape, even the True North tape, last year is really good. I mean, this kid can go hot, from all three levels on the hardwood. So I think when you bring in somebody like that on the football side, you just know there's so much more room physically for him to take monster steps on the football field. It's the same thing with Calvin Russell, another guy who's got basketball high on his list of priorities. When you play AAU and you're working hoops in the offseason instead of spring football, it's just a physical thing, right? I mean, you're not going to bulk up as much. You're not going to prioritize some of the craft on the football side as much, no matter how much you try to balance it compared to some other guys. So I think with that in mind and already seeing how polished Jasen Lopez is, I mean, top 10 slot receiver in the country easily, probably the best slot receiver in the state of Florida. Those tabs alone should probably warrant you a spot, in the class for Miami. And look, when you're the alpha at Chaminade Madonna at wide receiver, when you're new, you're new, and you got other guys running back to their old schools. You command that attention as a first year guy at Chaminade. I mean, that alone, I think warrants prioritization from Miami. So it's been up and down to me. I thought at one point he was the top slot target for the Canes. And then I thought at other points, hey, this is a national recruiting board for the U. So a Vance Spafford, a Larry Miles, where do those guys fit in relative to Jasen Lopez? I would love to have a glimpse of Kevin Beard's board relative to the slot position. But I think it's going to work out very positively no matter what for Miami. So I've gone back and forth on Lopez. I do think the U getting the final official visit plus the basketball offer does put the Canes in an advantageous position. Is it one spot for a slot? Could it open up to two? We don't have those answers at this point, but right now, as we sit on June 23rd, Marcus, I'd have a hard time, seeing Miami say no, thank you to a product like Jasen Lopez, which is again very much unfinished, even though we see so much value, so many highlights, so much production to his name already.
Yeah, it'd be hard to imagine that Miami doesn't land Jasen Lopez, but you just kind of never know with recruiting and kind of how things will kind of shift as far as a player's interest or school's interest as well. Sometimes that changes. It's a very fluid situation, to say the least. Recruiting is, because I thought Ryan Merritt would make sense as well, and he ends up committing to Ole Miss. So
Ole
I
Miss,
think
yeah.
yeah, so I think you just kind of never know. It seemed to make sense that Ryan Merritt would land in the 2026 class, but I guess there's only so many guys. But right now, wide receiver, they have zero guys committed to the list. But I certainly expect that to change in the next upcoming weeks. I would be curious to see what's on Kevin Beer's board as well, John, with all the options that we've seen come through Coral Gables for these official visits. I did want to talk about the running back position as well, because we've got Lamar is one of Miami's top targets at the running back position. Of course, they have Javion Mallory committed to the class as well. I had a chance to speak to him over the weekend. He had his official visit. Also did visit Alabama the week prior. So interesting to see that, he did take that visit. And then, of course, you got the local talent in Derrek Cooper that Miami, of course, is trying to get to stay home, another Chaminade Madonna product. So Lamar is looking to make his decision on the 25th, which is Wednesday. So my question is to you, John, is if they take Lamar, do you also take Derrek Cooper and a Javion Mallory? Should they take three running backs? If you're the recruiting coordinator, how do you handle this running back situation with Lamar showing a lot of interest in the Hurricanes, and he could pick the Canes this week?
Yeah, this is a really nice problem to have for the running back board. Look, first of all, Mallory, very interesting visit to Bama, very good player. I think more of a conventional back. I think Jay Lamar and Derek Cooper are also so different, comparatively. I mean, gosh, Jay is rock solid, rocked up and rock solid, downhill type of guy, who might be a workhorse at the next level. So hard to imagine, Miami, slowing down its push there, especially with the commitment so close. He was at Georgia this past weekend. A couple other schools are right there in the thick of it. So that would profile as a big win. But I mean, Derek Cooper is the number one player in South Florida, the number one player in the state of Florida for us at Rivals. And you talk about a long time priority. I mean, we're talking 18 months of true prioritization from Miami's staff and not just the on-field staff. So that one, I don't see him, getting a no thank you from the U. This is probably not the plan. I mean, three backs in this day and age is not something we see a lot of programs effort. But when two are local and one, maybe the best one in Cooper is the latest to decide, I think it makes it tough on the numbers. It makes it tough on all involved trying to get this thing done. But look, you're not going to say no to Jay Lamar this late in the game. He was just on campus, 2 weekends ago as a big time priority, an emerging priority perhaps for the U. So clearly, I think there's a possibility that three backs could be committed all at once. Now, Lamar's coveted elsewhere. Mallory took the Bama visit, and Cooper is no layup for the Canes, right? Georgia's right there. He just went up to Ohio State and Florida State over the last week or so. So that one's no layup either. But it looks like Lamar's going to come off the board Wednesday, and I think Cooper comes off the board thereafter. So it could line up potentially for a three-back class for Miami. But even if they're all committed by, the 4th of July, let's say, it's going to be a battle to hold on to all three. Because now other programs will use exactly what we're talking about against Miami. Hey, you're one of three backs going to you. Come be the lead back at Clemson. Come be the lead back at Georgia. Come be the lead back, at Florida State, wherever it is. I mean, so that becomes its own, modified recruiting pitch. But as you know, Marcus, there's so many elements to this thing. With Cooper, it's always felt like Miami, Georgia, Miami, kind of flip-flopping in order. I still feel that way. almost independent of what Lamar decides on Wednesday. But again, just like receiver, a really good problem for Miami to have. And it's part of the reason why we feel like, yeah, this class is going to continue to ascend regardless of what the final names are per position.
Yeah, I do want to get your opinion on this class. A little bit later, just after this last topic, I want to tackle because, of course, you're an Indy Rivals 5-star. Back for a second year in a row. Excited to really kind of see the talent out there that you guys are going to report for Rivals. Miami's got a couple of commits that will be out there, including Jordan Campbell, Jontavius Wyman, as well as Jaelen Waters. Very, very, very talented guys. I'm really excited about Waters. I feel like he has a chance to be, an impact player once he gets the orange and green on. So your thoughts on the Miami commits first, and I do understand that you have a piece on matchups as well. So if you could share any of the matchups that are intriguing to you at the Rivals 5-star in Indy.
Yeah, Miami defenders galore at this event. Jordan Campbell was here last year and impressed among the linebackers. Curious to see this week, do we get some pass rushing out of Jordan and some off-ball stuff with that versatile projection? I think that could be fun for him. I mean, no kid brings more energy to any event, really, than a Jordan Campbell. So it would be
second year in a row he's at the Rivals 5-star.
Yeah, it'd be very unsurprising if he worked both positions really well. And then, yeah, I agree with you. I think with Waters and Wyman, very curious to see how they operate both one-on-one against a great group of receivers, but also underneath in zones when we get to the 7-on-7. Where are their IQs at, relative to coverage, right? Because we're not seeing as much man-to-man at the collegiate level. It's great. You want to be great at it. You would love that luxury to let those guys isolate. And I got to run here in a minute. But I would like to see them work one-on-one, but also, in some zone coverage, with some other guys, just to see where they're at relative to their eyes and ball skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, yeah, does Miami get a top 10 class or top 5 class? Right now, they're seated at 7 in the nation. I think Miami has a really great chance to get a top 5 class. Do they achieve that feat by signing day?
Absolutely. This is a top 5 class. You got the number 1 player committed. You're going to grab another 5-star or 2, it appears. The running back and receiver rooms are going to blow up, numbers wise. And there's a ton of, tight ends out there as well that Miami looks like they're in strong position for. So, yeah, I just think from a number standpoint, the trend is way up. If you look at the average star rating per commitment, and Miami's, top 5 or 6 in the country as well. So it's quality and quality for the U.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I do think Miami's on their way to a top 5 class, maybe a top 3 class, just based on the numbers. And I think Miami's going to have a successful season as well. So I think that is going to help Miami land another top 5 class here in the crystal ball era. That's John Garcia, national recruiting analyst for Rivals.com, kind enough to join me from the Rivals 5-star in Indy. John, looking forward to your reports this week on what those Miami commits do against really high competition, and look forward to talking with you again.
Sounds good, boss. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Once again, this is Marcus Benjamin representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you tune in to the Storm Tracker podcast on all platforms, as well as on this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Until the next episode.